welcome to episode number 32 of The Final Whistle. I am Kyle. He is Mark off an incredible and newsworthy sports weekend. Mark, how are you, my guy?
Yeah, incredible and newsworthy to say the least. If you're a sports fan, you really enjoyed this weekend. If you're into weightlifting, obviously this is one of the biggest weekends in weightlifting with the Arnold Sports Classic Expo that just ended this weekend here in our lovely home state of Ohio. You got the NFL offseason news going absolutely insane. You've got March Madness right around the corner. UFC, not only a numbered event, but a White House card being previewed and added in. What more could you not want about sports? You got basketball, you got football, you got fighting, you got weightlifting, you got anything you can imagine that you can follow up with. Not to mention the NBA is still going on as we speak. So World Baseball Classic as well is underway. Yeah. So if you're a sports fan, you love kind of the position that we're at here in March. While the NFL might not be playing, you're looking at a very, very great month ahead.
Yeah, and there's a lot to get into. We're probably not getting into everything. Thank goodness we'll cut it up and be able to different days. So we'll probably catch up on some more news next week and the following week and so on and so on. Because we know there's a lot. There's been a lot already this morning through the NFL-wise. 2 trades, a move being made. So we're definitely going to dive into all that probably within the next leading up to the draft. So stay with us on that. So we also want to say, don't forget, 2 weeks from today, March 25th, we are live on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern for a live show again to chat with you all. We cannot wait to get back to chatting with you all. It's going to be fun. And it's our weekly live only on YouTube, 7 p.m. Eastern, March 25th. Well, before we get into the fun news, we had some sad news to report this past week, literally hours after we came off the air with you, or we released our last show. Lou Holtz, one of the sports legends and icons, unfortunately passed away last weekend, 89 years old. If you remember, I know he's a little before our time coaching, me and Mark, and I'm sure most of y'all really didn't see him coach as much, but 89 years old, holds a record of 249 wins, 132 losses, and 7 ties. Led Notre Dame to a national championship in 1988. Also coached Arkansas, North Carolina State, South Carolina, and Hall of Fame coach as well. But as Mark, the world, there's been, as you all remember, there was a lot of bickering back and forth between him and Ohio State in the past couple of years, calling them soft, and Ryan Day getting into it, and now he has passed, and the world lost a sports legend and icon this past week.
Yeah, if you've watched pretty much any college sporting event of some sort, especially if you follow college football, you obviously know who Lou Holtz is and kind of what he is. He's got the famous lisp and things of that nature. You obviously know him best for being the Notre Dame coach and a national championship winning coach as well. He was on College Game Day quite a bit a few years ago. Obviously, as he got older, his appearances became a little less. You kind of, at this point, anybody that's our age would remember him pretty much being in an armchair, sofa chair, whatever you want to call it. But losing him obviously is quite the hit to college football as far as the coaching ranks are concerned. Obviously, him and Ryan Day notably had their tiff where right before our national championship run, Lou Holtz had some things to say. Ryan Day had the famous quote of where's Lou Holtz at now? And things of that nature. Well, we lost him. He obviously we pray for his remaining family members and people close to him that lost him. But obviously we lost another great legendary coach. And unfortunately, as you kind of move through and you move through life, you kind of understand that you've been watching sports for a while. These things inevitably happen, and those coaches, those personalities that you grew up with, you unfortunately have to bear the loss of in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure Notre Dame faithful, especially the older that you get, kind of like our parents' age and things like that, feel this a little bit more as they probably grew up watching him run those Notre Dame teams and things of that nature. But Notre Dame Nation took a hit this week. College football took a hit this week, and we obviously understand that Lou Holtz was a legendary coach, and we hope his name is honored correctly once the season starts and moving forward.
Yeah, he worked for ESPN, and he worked his most famous moments. Most of you all know. I remember when he was on college football final after. I just remember as a
Yep.
kid, as he would always argue. Him, Mark May, Reese Davis were the three recapping a day, and it'd be just like a nice, cool, crisp. When we were younger, fall, summer, or like a summer night on Saturday. And we would just be watching the college football final and getting all the scores you missed. Because remember back then we didn't really have all these streaming services
Yeah.
and channels, so you were trying to catch up on what you missed. Like I remember there'd be times where my parents like had a fundraiser, we're going out, so I had to go to my grandma's, and like there was games on like ESPNU that she didn't have the
Yep.
subscription for, so you were trying to catch up on that, and also trying to and the phone wasn't real. I mean, the phone was the internet. Phone was the phone back then, but you're still the internet was still getting going, the iPhone was still getting going, so you're still trying to make make your make your ways to find scores compared to what we got now. So, but no, he's
Yeah.
been.
100%.
And if you just look at some of the videos he's had, you could just Google like college football final, like it was the final verdict where they would state a case, or like it would be like a beat. Like I remember the one with like BCS when the old BCS formula was there, talking about how they can't, how like who deserves to get in, just like we do now college
Yep.
football. Like it would have been great if no those two are still doing it, but no, and it just the way they got mad at each other, the way they went over, everything was funny. And Reese would have like the judge robe, which he would pull over, which was fun. So he's gonna be missed, and we didn't really get to watch him as we mentioned because we were not even born yet, or he was at the very end of his career coaching wise before he went to TV. So he's definitely gonna be missed, Mark. And there's really not much you can say other than he was a great coach. Going back national champion. I didn't just going up at some of this. I didn't know he coached at Minnesota and William Mary, and everywhere he has won. He's got a track record there. He's also served at CBS, so he's got a very good track record. And just researching him and going back to his past, there's some things like that, like Minnesota W. Mary, that not really a lot of people talk about, especially when he's coaching at schools like Notre Dame and South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think when, unfortunately, most people only get their flowers once they're gone. And once you really start to research such a legendary coach like that, you kind of understand that while he was biggest in the biggest school, obviously with Notre Dame, especially at that time frame, they were even bigger than what we know them to be now. Um, Again, you kind of just understand like these guys were like real legends, and everywhere they went, they had impacts, and Lou Holtz was definitely no different.
Yeah. So Lou Holtz passed away, and of course, we were literally it was news was flying. News was flying. We had NFL starting to come up, and I remember and then we had Lou Holtz pass. I was on the phone with Mark last week. I called him Wednesday night, like, bro, like how the hell did we get all this stuff? And well, that stuff was flying. Like we had trades going down. We had this Lou Holtz passing, but this is what the great thing. I mean, not the great thing someone passed, but the good, like you just have all this stuff to talk about,
Yo,
and we are very excited to get going. And so rest in peace, Lou Holtz. Praying for the family and Notre Dame community and all the college football community that have been affected and the lives he's touched throughout the time he was on this earth. All right, shifting gears now to a little more positive light as college basketball is in full gear. March Madness is on the way. We start this current week, at the time of this release, with Championship Week. We call it our conference tournament week, as some of the tournaments started last week. Some of the big tournaments start this week, Mark. And would you believe we will start with a team in Ohio who has made history this weekend, undefeated season, the 31-0, the Miami Redhawks in Oxford, Ohio, in the Mid-American Conference. One of four teams to start 30-0 or more or better, followed with the 14-15 Kentucky 38-0, 13-14 Wichita State 35-0, and 2021 Gonzaga 21-0. It's going to be tough though, Mark. They set a record, but as you know from college sports, whether it's college football to college basketball, you're not guaranteed a spot in this tournament. If you win, for those of you that don't know, if you win your conference tournament, if you're not in the bigger conference, you have to win the conference tournament to get the auto bid, because some leagues are like they call it one bid league, which only one team gets in no matter who. You could have the best record like Miami has, and you could still not get in. So you need to win. They need to win this week, I think, because there's a lot of buzz. They might not get in, even though they had a win, or they went undefeated and beat, in their conference beat their conference, right through their conference, and now you have a team like Akron, who people are talking about, who could get in. It may be a one bid league. It could be a two bid league, Mark. But hats off to Miami of Ohio, freaking going undefeated. Who would have thought when the conference they play in, going, especially in a non-conference with no losses, going into conference tournament this week?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a great story, especially when you talk about small school recognition, right? We all love a Cinderella story, especially when it comes to March Madness. We all love an underdog story, pretty much no matter what sport we're talking about here. And regardless of their cupcake schedule, so to speak, or not, I mean, eventually you would assume even the best teams like your Dukes and things like that, they have slip ups, right? And this team didn't have a slip up at all. I mean, they had some nail biters, they had a couple of game winners throughout the season, but they never took that inevitable loss. So we'll see kind of how these next couple of weeks go with the conference tournaments rolling in. I know we already have one NCAA tournament bid with Tennessee State, so shout out to them. I do know, big shout out to
State?
yeah, and my a friend of ours, or a friend of mine that I used to play basketball with my barber at his church, currently plays for Tennessee State. So shout out to them and shout out to him for getting the NCAA tournament bid. I know that's huge for them. And as we round out the end of this bracket, it'll be interesting to see MAC schools and things like that, where they kind of end up. Because I mean, this is pretty much the first full week of March Madness with these conference tournaments. In Miami of Ohio, you're definitely not out of the woods yet. While you have that 31-0, it's going to go down in record books and things of that nature. The work is not finished, and I hope they're not hanging their hats on what they did in the regular season, because now you have pretty much 2 more seasons to go. You have this conference tournament, which is its own season in itself. It's a grind.
Yep.
I mean, you're playing pretty much every other day or back-to-back days at some points for some of these conferences. And then if you get into the tournament, you're really into a third season where you're playing day in, day out. You might be going to different sites. You might be going to different places, doing different things. So I hope a team like that, with all their success, isn't just hanging their hat on regular season success, because there's a long road to go.
Yeah, and going with Miami, I've just looking at the schedule here while Mike was talking. I was looking at it before, but going back and look at it, I could kind of understand why people are kind of like,
So wishy-washy.
yeah, worried about Miami getting in. Now, as we always say, you can't control who you play in conference, because the conference gives you that schedule. You cannot blame it on that. All this conference. We'll just say a conference member is like 0-12 in a conference, but that's not your fault. That's who is in your conference. You can't get mad at that.
If the MAC is terrible, the MAC is terrible, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, so that's a smaller conference, but they're playing teams like, okay, you have a Sun Belt, it's a MAC and Sun Belt Challenge, Old Dominion, okay, I mean, that's still a conference. You got a college, never heard of in Illinois, called Trinity. Air Force, okay. Mercyhurst, no. Arkansas Pine Bluff, UNC Greensboro, who didn't make the tournament, And then you go to
Mercyhurst is a Division II school, by the way.
Actually, they're Division One. They played in Division One. I think for football, they're Division Two. Yeah, the football they're Division Two.
Yeah, they're traditionally they're Division II teams. So very interesting. But I mean, if you have a wishy-washy school like that, that definitely isn't helping the resume.
No, and then you got a team like IU East. I'm assuming it's Indiana East, Maine, UNC Asheville, Eastern Kentucky, and then a Milligan, who doesn't even have a logo, so that could tell you everything. And then you get into conference play. So I understand. Like this, like you probably or Miami probably didn't put a good resume out there. As we all talk about college.
What would their best win be? A MAC school?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of conference it would be Old Dominion in the Sun Belt Challenge. And going back, I'm trying to pull up here real quick. But yeah, when it goes back to the conference resumes, that's not going to, because if you lose this week in a tournament, you got to hold your breath. If you don't make at least the championship game, you're probably not getting in if you're Miami. I hate to say it. Do I think they should get in? I would say slightly leaning yes. I mean, you can't. I mean, great. They made history, but your schedule says otherwise. I mean, how do we not know when you play a team? They could be in the first four, which is the first four. It's the first 4 games before we get to the actual tournament next Tuesday and Wednesday. But I don't know. I think it depends who you lose to. If they could lose, now people are saying, Akron's up there too. I'm looking at Akron's schedule real quick. Akron, they finished number 2, and they're 26-5 with one loss in the conference. They played a better schedule. They play James Madison, okay. Princeton, okay. Penn State, Sheerhan, They played Purdue. They hung around Purdue for a little bit. Iona, Evan, they played a little bit of a better schedule than Miami did outside of. They played Tulane. They played Murray State. So they
which is
played better in that
important at the end of
conference.
the day.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Do I think if Miami would lose to Akron, do they get in? Sure, but I think it depends how they lose too. Do they lose in style? Do they lose in if they get blown out? I mean, they played already in the max. You can't. I don't think it'll be a blowout if they play in the conference championship
Yeah,
game.
likely it'd be a close game.
But then and then I would put them in over SEC team that doesn't deserve it. I think they don't deserve it because there's teams that, and even on the women's side, like there's SEC teams that don't deserve to get in. Like I'm sure for the women's side, the Tennessee team lost like 8 straight, and they're probably going to get in because they're the SEC. Money talks. So this is where I think you take a spot from the SEC, unless there's a SEC team now makes a run. SEC team makes a run. Now we call those bubble teams. Miami's still. There's bubble teams, and we could go down to Ohio State. They're a bubble team, but they're a bubble probably leaning in right now because they had that big win over Purdue. They had that big win over Indiana and Penn State. So I think they're in. You got a team like Cincinnati. They just beat BYU, who was top 10 during the season. They only got 30% chance to get in, though. San Diego State had a hot start, lost the last 4 out of 5 games. St. Louis, they're ranked 25, 76% to get in. They probably got to run the table in their conference tournament mark, so Miami, you're not safe, especially if these teams that I just mentioned and probably a couple more go, especially in a couple other conferences, go on a run here this last week and go farther than Miami would in their own conference tournament.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, real quick shout out to Ohio State point guard Bruce Thornton, who is a 4-year team captain and just broke the all-time Ohio State scoring record. You don't really see a lot of guys, especially as a captain, stay 4 years, especially in the college basketball format of things. Now, granted, he's a small guard, but wanted to shout that out, especially as Ohio State's basketball team has been pretty notoriously bad since like Evan Turner and Aaron Kraft days. I think the last time we were in the tournament was 2020 or 2021. So it's been a few years, but I mean, yeah, as far as like really we're talking about Miami of Ohio, but when you talk about really any of these small school MAC teams, whatever the case may be, Sun Belt, whatever, like that's where the conversation starts to lie, right? Because a lot of these other, we'll call them bubble teams, they already have bigger wins than you because they auto play or because they have the notoriety of being called Ohio State, being called Penn State, being called Purdue, being called St. Louis. Which St. Louis, for those of you that don't know, if you do follow college basketball or at least March Madness, is pretty much a perennial March Madness team, and do relatively well in the tournament. Like you have these teams that have notoriety, so other teams want to play them. When you're Miami of Ohio, you have to beg to play other teams, and if you're too scared to do so, then you run into this hole where if you can't win your conference, you can't win your conference tournament, you're gonna have like a 50-50 shot at best because other teams just have the resume over you based off of notoriety and other things, and they've had the opportunity to get those wins that you didn't take the opportunity to take. So it'll be very interesting to see now. Granted, I also think that Miami of Ohio can pick up some good wins in this MAC tournament, and that's going to be a big thing. But after that, I mean, we'll kind of see if they, let's say they hypothetically lose their tournament at some point in time. What does happen when Ohio State makes, let's say, the last 4 in the Big Ten, per se, or if they get a big win over like another win over Michigan State, or they catch like whatever a Michigan team that maybe knows that they're going to be in already, so they might not care and they're trying to get healthy, or things of that nature. Now, obviously, that's not what I'm saying is going to happen, but they're hypotheticals. So when it comes to really, when it comes to things like that, Miami of Ohio is, I mean, they're pretty much, I would almost say they have to win to get in at this, for sure get in at this point, because the minute they lose, their percentages drop way down.
Yeah, don't leave it in the committee's hands to dictate your future. Now, no matter what happens, they're still going to play in the postseason, whether it's a big tournament or they'll play in a smaller tournament called the
The NIT,
NIT.
yeah.
Those for those of you that don't know are just it's a smaller tournament of consists of 32 teams that pretty much are like runner-ups of the conference or of a smaller conference. So, like for instance, if say Miami or let's say Miami wins the tournament, Akron doesn't get into the big tournament, they would go to NIT. It's like runner-ups, if that makes sense. So they would get into the tournament to the NIT and then like third and fourth smaller tournaments like a CIT or the CBI or it's just smaller tournaments that really don't get a lot of recognition just because of the longitude and magnitude of what March Madness is. You really don't hear from unless your favorite team's in it. Like I know for like instance Cleveland State, they were playing like it was a CBI last year, but it was really on TV. You had to pay for a subscription to watch it. It was just you had to follow it on your phone and all that. So they're probably not getting in. So obviously Cleveland State's out of it. They had to start over last year. They lost their coach in North Texas, so they finished 11-21 or 22, I should say. Excuse me. So they're playing. So they're out of it. But the women are still in it. They play Youngstown State. They played Youngstown State. We'll know if they won by the time this gets released. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, and then you also got the Power Four tournaments this week: Big Ten, ACC, Big 12, and SEC, all with still kind of a lot at stake with the number one seeds at stake. The number one seeds for right now are Duke, Michigan, Arizona, UConn, Florida are the top four teams that are right now by the committee are slated to be top unless some chaos happens as UConn did lose, so kind of bumped up Florida. UConn's still hovering. I think they need to win their tournament to probably solidify the number one seed mark. But Duke played Michigan this past February. Duke beat them, which could be a rematch coming in March. Final Four, Elite Eight, depends on where each team. Probably more Final Four or National Championship. Probably depending on where teams get seeded, Mark. But there's a lot of stake with the Power Four because as you mentioned, a lot of teams can make a run, and
Yeah.
the top ones better be careful because in Arizona they get the tournament and they don't do crap in a year. They fall short. Last year or the year before they got upset by no, I think last year they got upset by
I
a
believe it was last
15
year,
seed
yeah.
by Princeton. Yeah, so Arizona is a regular season team, but there's a lot in these tournaments, a lot of storylines that come out of it that are going to probably shake up the seeding one way or another in the NCAA tournament for next week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, right now you kind of have an understanding of what you think it's going to be. Obviously, Duke has returned to form after some, I'll call them down years as far as the Duke standards go. Obviously, you're used to Duke having a bunch of one and done players and just running roughshod through college basketball. Michigan's back to power as far as their standards go. Obviously, they've had some good years recently, but they had a bit of a down year, and now they're back to a number one seed. Florida is a lot of people's dark horse team as far as this tournament is concerned. UConn has, I mean, we all remember Kemba Walker and things like that. So UConn has always been
Yeah.
good, and they're kind of back to form. But it's very interesting because when you look at March Madness, obviously college basketball does get extremely hard to follow because of the way they play their games and the way that they're not really televised all that much. Just as far as like the average sports fan or whatever the case may be. But when you look at college basketball as far as March Madness and conference tournaments, now you're really into anybody can win on any given day, especially
Yep.
when it comes to basketball. And it's not like NBA for those of you that don't follow college basketball. It's one game and one game only. You walk in and you have a bad day, you have a bad shooting day, whatever the case may be, and you're looking at a loss and you're going home to somebody that you should have never lost to. And it with the transfer portal and just such a big pool of teams when it comes to March Madness, this is where you really see transfer portal situations shine because college basketball has
And
become
NIL,
and
NIL.
yep, and college basketball has become an area where the talent is so much more spread out. And some of these mid-major teams, for those of you that even follow basketball altogether, you know how important the three-point shot is. That's all these mid-majors do, is they bomb threes left, right, and center. And if one of these teams just gets a hot shooting night, all of a sudden you have another Cinderella team on our hands. So, I mean, as far as everybody goes, you always see lately even one seeds, but 2, 3, 4 seeds fall to these um, 11, 10, 12, 15 seeds. So nobody's out of the woods once these tournaments start to happen because they're grueling. You play your conference tournament, and if you win the conference tournament, you've probably played, what is it, Kyle? I believe 4 games.
Depends. You can play 5, 6, depending on where you start.
Yeah, depending on where you start. Yeah, so I
In
mean,
the
you're looking
conference.
at anywhere between 4 to 6 games, either every other day or at some point back to back nights. And then you
Yeah.
walk into the tournament a week, basically 4 days later. Like your Power Four conferences, you end on Saturday or Sunday, and then you find out where you're seated that night or the very next day, 24 hours later. And then you're going in potentially playing on. If you're a mid major, you're playing on a Thursday or a Friday to play on that Saturday. So, like, I mean, we're looking at back to back nights every other night. Like, I mean, these
Yeah.
times are grueling. You don't get a lot of practice time. You don't get a lot of film time. So now you're going to really see, like, not only mental fortitude, but if these kids can really play on some back to back schedules and start to look like the NBA. But you only get one game to win. So it'll be very interesting. And as we always say, the madness begins and nobody's safe once that clock starts on March Madness.
Yeah, and going back to as thinking a Big Ten tournament, like the tournament starts tomorrow, and there's 2 first-round games. So a team would have to play 6 games if they made the incredible run.
If
So
they were
they're
to
going to
win,
be
yeah.
yeah, and if they and probably I doubt anyone from the first round of the Big Ten will make it compared to a lot of other teams that are still in it.
Yeah,
But
so top heavy.
yeah, and we go back to NIL and all. As we're gonna really have a big discussion about this, as probably over the summer when we get our good buddy Sean on to discuss it all. Because we have a lot to talk about that, especially before the football season starts. But I see a lot of people saying, "Well, there's not going to be a run from a smaller team because of the NIL and just the money and all that." And I'm just thinking to myself, I think there'll be a run. Now, could it be Miami? It depends where they play. It could very well still be in the first 4 game, so they might not even make the entire tournament, depending on what happens starting Thursday. But but when these smaller teams are playing, like I watch, like you'll see, like especially when you play the ones, the 16 seeds, and we're gonna really dive into it next week. We're gonna dive into the whole bracket next week, so it's just kind of just a preview. But when you see like Michigan or Duke and you see these like full on scholarship teams that have like 12, 13 players, and you got a team like UNC Greensboro, I forgot who else, Tennessee State that make it, they have like 10 people, and you can tell the bench, and just like the money. So, and the 16 seed are not going to compete. UMBC a couple years ago competed with Virginia, but it seems like that's just a fluke. But compared to all the other seeds, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, the 5, especially that 5-12. That 5-12 game is very, very sneaky. There's always that one 5-12 upset. We've seen that in the past.
At least
So
one. There's been some tournaments where almost all the 12 seeds have won.
yeah, so it's very, very sneaky, and you got smaller teams winning, and you wouldn't even think, and you got these playing games that consist of 16 seeds and 11 seeds to get into the tournament. So it sucks. Yeah, you make the big dance, but I don't get me wrong, I love the first 4. I think the playing's cool. Adds a couple extra days, especially on St. Patrick's Day this year. That's gonna be really fun. But when you get your corned beef and some drinks and are watching the first 2 games of the quote
Oh
unquote
yeah.
tournament, the first 4. So and Dickie V and it's gonna call first round game with Charles Barkley. That's gonna be something to watch next Tuesday. So we're very excited for that to see. But yeah, so you got it's just tough when you see somebody small. I would love this. We all love a good Cinderella run, no matter who it is. And if Miami's that team this year, Miami's gonna be that team this year. But we'll see. They still got 3 games to go. And if they lose, then it opens up a lot of bubble talk, especially Mark, when we know, like you said, anything can happen. It's just a matter of who, when, where, and what happens throughout the cross. And this is what we love. We got, what's what we love. Anything can happen. You got tournaments. Like I know when I get home from work tonight, I'll be watching the Sun Belt and
Oh yeah.
Southern Conference, the SoCon Conference, or Southern Conference. They call it SoCon. But team games that we don't really watch on a regularly, but they're getting highlighted because it's their championship game. And I know I'll be watching Cleveland State's Conference Horizon League tonight because there's the semifinals for that. So when the little teams get a chance to shine, it's very refreshing compared to some of the big Power Four teams we see week in and week out throughout the season. Mark.
Yeah, I agree. And for those of you that maybe aren't in the Cleveland area or enjoy traveling, if you have the opportunity to watch, or if there's a site near you, obviously we had the site in Cleveland last year that I was fortunate enough to be at. and I believe it was the second round of things. But if you guys have the opportunity to watch some of these, the atmosphere is insane, pretty much no matter what.
Incredible.
Especially if you don't have like, I'll call it a horse in the race, right? You're not really rooting for a specific team. The underdogs and the way they play and things like that. If you have the opportunity and the tickets aren't too out of your price range or anything like that, I suggest going. It's a very interesting thing to watch. It's a very fun thing to see. I believe the MAC tournament even is isn't it in Cleveland, Kyle?
Yeah, it's
I
in
believe.
Cleveland at the
Yeah,
Rocket
so I mean,
Arena. Yep.
even our Cleveland folks, like if you have the opportunity, go watch Miami of Ohio, right? So I mean, go check them out, see what's happening. I mean, this is the time that college basketball basically makes their dollar from. This is where it gets very exciting. So if you have the opportunity, watch it. It's one of the best times of the year. That's why March is slated as basically college football time, or excuse me, college basketball time, and everybody tunes in. So it should be an exciting March Madness, and we'll be covering some things as the week continues.
Yeah, and we will watch. We will be live, or well, we'll be talking about the. We're going to take a whole show next week, talk about the whole bracket, give our picks. We'll go each region game by game. We'll kind of discuss the fallout from championship week, and we'll discuss, especially just Miami's story. If they didn't get in, who got in over them? Because the committee releases, who got in over them, and we'll kind of dissect that. And so that's next week's show. We're very excited to bring you that March Madness preview show coming up next week. All right, a big shout out before we get going is it was Gotcha Day for our family dog Kuzi, as Kuzi's a German Shepherd. German Shepherd Black Lab mix, and he's only 2 years old, and it was Gotcha Day last Sunday, and he sometimes he can really push your buttons, with his terrible twos and being a baby, and but he's an amazing dog. So shout out for Gotcha Day to Kuzi 2 years ago.
Shout out Big Coos.
This past March 1st is when we got him. So amazing dog, and I know Mark wanted to give a shout out to an event that happened, as he kind of mentioned earlier in the show, down in Columbus.
Yeah, yeah. The Arnold Classic. Again, those of you that kind of know me or our buddy Sean, who obviously will be on the show at a later date, and just those of you that are into the weightlifting culture as well. The busiest Arnold Classic to date by the numbers, by the attendance, and by tickets sold ever in the history of the Arnold. So a big shout out to that weightlifting culture. Health and fitness culture is back, and it is obviously it's there. It's bigger than ever, and a big shout out to that event this weekend and all of those that competed, whether it was in the weightlifting, the bodybuilding, powerlifting. There was also jiu-jitsu matches and cheer competitions, dance competitions, things like that. A big thing just 2 hours away from us down in Columbus, Ohio. So a big shout out to everyone and anyone that not only competed at the Arnold, but was also there at the Arnold, just kind of experiencing weightlifting, fitness, and things of that nature. So a big shout out to the Arnold Classic. Happens every year in the first weekend in March. If you didn't get a chance to go, again, it was their busiest time. And literally it's history, to the point where fire marshals were in there having to shut down because of capacity for some of the booths and for the convention center over in Columbus altogether. So a shout out to them being in our lovely state of Ohio. It's always a big event, a big thing, and the weather was beautiful for the weekend at hand. So shout out to the Arnold Classic. Shout out to those of you that enjoy the weightlifting culture, and here's to another 365 days of health and fitness.
Yeah, so I know as you and Sean and a couple other people that are really big into it, it's good. You were showing me some videos when we were watching UFC the other night, and I've seen some pictures on Twitter and Instagram of how packed it was. So it's a growing thing. So hey, congrats to everybody that runs it, and congrats to everybody making it as what it is. So can't wait for next year, and I know Mark will probably be heading back down there next year as well, as we get when it comes back around and all that. So it'll be very exciting
sure.
to see how it differentiates from this year and last year. All right, so we're going to move, as we got some NFL to talk about. Again, we're not going to get into everything because we'd be here forever. So we're going to pick and choose.
Kidding.
We're going to pick and choose each week what we do. So we're going to start with probably the three biggest, a couple big stories And then we'll save some other big stories for next week and the following week, etc., etc. So if we want to hear us talk about your story, it's not on this week. It's probably this next week or the week after. So stay tuned for that. But before we get into the big stories, we want to talk about other things that broke this past weekend. And I know Mark's been chopping at the bit ever since this broke. Myles Garrett again pulled over for the ninth time, speeding. And I'm gonna be honest with you, folks. I love him, but I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of this guy doing what he keeps doing. 9 times. What the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be a team leader. You're supposed to be you're making a fool out of yourself. You're a clown for doing that. I love him. You're a great player, but you're a clown. Why are you running? Why are you speeding? Or what? Like what? I don't
He was
understand.
docked at
Why.
100 miles an hour, and the officer gave him a break and cited him at 94. The video is out on Twitter if you want to go see it.
I don't understand why. Like I don't understand. Now, any other person, we're probably getting thrown in jail. That's just for at least one of them
Yep.
for being a repeat offender. But you're. I get it. Okay, you're an NFL player, and I'm not. You're a good player, but Miles, you're an idiot. I'm gonna say it. I don't care. I'm sure. I haven't really heard a lot of media this week, but I'm sure they won't call it how it is. I'm gonna call it how it
Or
is.
he'll duck and
Miles,
dodge it like he did last time.
you're an idiot, Miles, and I don't care. Our friend can come at me all I want, but you're an idiot for doing what you're doing. And this is Mark. You said this is every year with him. Every offseason, there's one incident. You got into that crash and almost killed
It's the
yourself.
same car he crashed. He was
Yeah,
going 100 miles in the same exact car. He had the rollover and almost didn't play for a week because of the injuries.
yeah. And I understand. Okay, maybe once or twice. Okay, whatever. Just stop being just control. But this is like over 5 times, and this is really concerning. And you're just a big idiot. You're putting your future at risk. You're putting the team at risk. You're not. That's not thinking about your team. That's really not. So why do you? Let me ask you this: you think you get pulled? Why do you think, Miles, you get a pass when nobody else could do it? And I don't understand. It's just stupid. It's just idiotic, and I don't know. It frustrates me, Mark.
I mean, yeah, it's different when you talk about now. Obviously, we could if we wanted to, but nobody's even pulled up his driving record prior to this. But 9 times since you've been in Cleveland, what year was he drafted? Like 16 or something like that.
17,
Um,
16, 17, yeah.
yeah, so he's been here for a while, for a decent amount of time. You're in Cleveland, Ohio. You're not like in some grand place. You're also like doing it in the off season, which is like every time he gets something happening to him, it's like in the cold months. So why are you even bringing out your nice cars in the cold months at this point in time? But at the same point, like you have to do media every off season about your driving. You crashed this very same car, and we're talking about how you could have lost your life, you could have lost limbs, like you were extremely messed up after the last crash in the same car. Then you're going 100 miles an hour, and I don't even know where he's in like some middle of nowhere city in Ohio at that. I don't even remember where it was, but I'd never heard of it before.
I'm gonna look it
Um,
up.
and the officer even helped you not have to go to court by docking you 6 miles per hour lower than what you had. You were going 100. She gave you 94 so that you didn't have to go to court. But like after the last time that you crashed, how are we not like done with this? How are
Yeah,
we not going 35, 40 miles over the speed limit in the bumfuck nowhere of Ohio? Like you also understand that your big ass can't handle that small ass car anyways at this point in time. It crushes onto you. So then you have to figure out, did I fuck up my playing career? Like, but then like last off season, you're looking for trades and things like that, but you can't even handle your off the field. Now, granted, it's not like he's like a murderer or anything like that, but at the same point, like we have a story every off season of you're in trouble with the law one way or the other. Like it's not making sense. I understand you're a multimillionaire, but like at this point, just hire a fucking driver to drive you
yeah,
around. Like at this point, like I understand some athletes, some high profile people, they're like, oh, I don't like that freedom being taken away from me of the feeling of not being able to drive myself somewhere. Okay, but at this point, like, what else are you risking not having that driver because you want to play Fast and the Furious in real life. You know what I mean? Like it just at this point, it's not making sense. And you have like this Browns team is an extremely young team. So what precedent are you setting for those young guys that are coming in? Like this is what Miles gets to do. This is what Miles does in Cleveland. Fuck it, let's do it. Like let's test the limits. Like what happens if, and now this is just hypothetically speaking, this is not me saying it's about to happen, but like Shador Sanders, he had that driving incident. What happens if he sees Miles doing this and like, fuck it, he does it, so I should be good, right? They're giving him the pass, I get the pass. And then something else happens. Like it's not team captain behavior. It's not like, again, kind of like Kyle said, I had my own driving past that I won't even get into, but like everybody fucks up. Everybody speeds a little behind the wheel, et cetera, et cetera. Like, but at this point in time, like you're a multimillionaire. You have contracts that pretty much total up to $1 billion at this point in time through extensions and things like that. Like, hire a driver or just do something else other than these speeding tickets because like you're supposed to be a team captain. You just begged for a trade. You've been begging the organization for all these changes, and then here we are for another offseason in a row talking about why are we speeding, what could have happened. Like you're in the media for the wrong reasons all the time now.
Idiotic. And we're not just saying that because, he's a pro. I would say it to Mark, or Mark would say it to me if you're speeding, or in any of our other friends that are
Our friend
being.
Sean has said it to me multiple times.
Yeah. And it's asinine. It is stupid that
And who
Miles.
in his corner is not holding him accountable? To your point, Kyle, like it that was me. Like out of high school, I had my driving ticket problems, whatever. I would get roasted for it in the group chat. Who in Miles' corner and Miles' camp is not holding him accountable and can't look themselves in the mirror saying, "Yo, we're putting this guy at risk." To Kyle's point, like he's not safe from media outlets. Why does he? Who is not holding him accountable in his own personal circle and just being yes men? Because shame on you as well for not holding him accountable, saying, "Yo, this just looks bad. It looks stupid. What happens if you get in another car crash and you don't get as lucky?"
Yeah. And then you screw the Browns over, you screw, the fans over, and more importantly, you screw yourself and your family over. So it is asinine what you're doing, Miles. And obviously he's not gonna listen to this, but you're an idiot. I'm gonna say it, you're an idiot. You're a good player. I love your playing the field, but off the field, it's got to change. It's got to change for the better because right now, that this is unacceptable. And people probably make fun of me because he could do it. He's an athlete, blah blah blah, and that's fine. But y'all ain't on camera doing it, so you're hiding behind screens and all that. But stupid, you're stupid, Miles. It's just the word stupid and idiotic. That's all I could say because I don't know. That's just all I can say because I don't even know what else to say. 9 times you run out of things and adjectives, nouns, pronoun, everything to say about it because it's just a repeat. It's like the Georgia thing. Every year there's a Georgia football player that gets in trouble for speeding or gets into an accident. So that's what we're turning into. He's turning into one of the Georgia players. And if that's what he wants to be labeled as, that he's a copycat of Georgia, and that's fine, But at some point, when is enough enough? When is AB, yep. Jimmy, even the new coach Tom could be like, look, cut your shit off with your speeding. You already almost died once. It's time to change your fortune. But if he wants to do this, so be it. And if and I'm not gonna be happy if he gets hurt or something. But if he would get into another crash or something because he's being idiotic, nobody's blamed but him.
It's the bed that he made, and he'd have to lie in it at that point in time. Obviously, we're not wishing ill will or injury on anyone, but sometimes people just have to learn the hard way, and we'll see if he has to learn the hard way a second time. Unfortunately,
and he's lucky. He's a good player to where obviously it's not going to affect him. But if he was like one of these like second or third stringers, his ass would have been cut. Probably would have been cut after the third or fourth time he got. Yeah, so he's just lucky where he's at right now because like you said, any other normal person probably gets a lot more trouble than he has. So now obviously we haven't really heard from the officer besides the body cam video, and we'll leave it at that. But just stop being an idiot, Miles. That's all we got to say in this topic. And we can't wait to talk about it next offseason when you're doing probably something even more idiotic and dumb. So
yeah, no kidding.
So we'll look forward to that. All right. enough about that. We got a couple trades that went down this past weekend. They're probably the only things we'll get into this weekend, or from this weekend, and then we'll dive into more stories next week. The biggest one came Thursday night or Friday night. Was it Friday night? I think Friday night.
I
Max
believe it was
Crosby
Friday.
traded from the Raiders to the Baltimore Ravens, as to despite of the Browns fans, for two first round picks in this year and next year's draft mark. The Ravens needed a little revamp. They get it. And for the rest of the division, Baltimore got a little better this past weekend.
Yeah, to say the least, Baltimore's front office has always been a win now front office. They've always made big moves historically, and they have another one under their belt. Now you give one of pretty much the top three pass rushers in the entire league, one of the best motors in the league, to a head coach and a defense that already is high up on the list. Jesse Minter now gets another toy to play with in his first year in Baltimore. Joe
Defensive
Burrow
coach,
is,
mind you. Defensive coach.
yeah, exactly, and that's another big talking point that will come to it. But yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow is now in hell as he has to pretty much go up against Myles Garrett. He has to go up
Yep.
against now Max Crosby and
What?
T.J. Watt, as well as Hayward and people like that. So, I mean, the AFC North is stacked with pass rushers and elite pass rushers, pretty much the top three pass rushers in the entire league, arguably, with Garrett, Watt, and now Max Crosby. The Baltimore Ravens pretty much sure up that D line as they did kind of falter in their pass rush pretty frequently this past season. They've gotten a lot older on that D line, so they get to revamp that. And the Raiders, very interestingly enough, seemed so reluctant to trade him, and then pretty much right when they have the ability to do so, they get rid of him. On, I mean, I think only time will tell, but as of right now, it seems like a pretty decent trade for both sides. The Raiders now have a second first-round pick in this year's draft, and they have two first-round picks next year. Sounds like they're going to go Mendoza with that first pick, and we'll see how they build around him. But they're stacking picks for yet another rebuild over in Las Vegas, as they did also let go of Geno Smith. And then for Max Crosby, now he gets kind of the Derrick Henry treatment over in Baltimore, where he's been an amazing player on a perennial bad team, and he gets the opportunity to compete for a Super Bowl. And only time will tell how that goes. Obviously, there's video of Max Crosby also celebrating his sixth year sober. Obviously, if you know Max Crosby's story, he had some bad addiction problems, and he kind of threw a big bash this past weekend to celebrate not only going to a Super Bowl team but 6 years of sobriety, and he gets the opportunity in Baltimore to play on an amazing defense, while the Browns kind of sat there and are going to need a lot more offensive line help now that we have yet another pass rusher to deal with.
Yeah, this was, I would say, unfortunately, it was a nice move for the Ravens. Their defense
It was
was
a very
down
nice
last
move. Yep.
year. Defense was down last year, and they got a guy that's gonna. Now, there's some now good for the Browns if they go with Sanders this year. He's a mobile quarterback, so that's gonna help
Yeah.
trying to keep him away from Crosby. But that line's got to hold up. You got Joe Burrow, which he can't. I mean, he can't really move. He's kind of just a passer. Rodgers, he's a passer as well. So I mean, two out of three teams he's got to face that he's gonna wreak some damage on them
Oh,
compared to what the
100%.
Browns. But I mean, their lines. I mean, the Steelers line's older too. So, but no, Crosby. He's a great player, and we got to think the other side too. The Raiders. The Raiders got better. Well, did they get better? We really don't know. But they
Only time
got
will tell.
two first round picks. They have a new coach again after Clint Kubiak was hired after the Super Bowl to replace Pete Carroll, who literally went like 1-16 or 2-15
Oh,
or
he was
whatever.
terrible.
Yeah. So, and will the revamp work? What is this? This is like their third coach in maybe like 5 years already. That's how
I think so.
poorly
Yeah.
their rebuild has gone, and it makes the Browns look like freaking Super Bowl contenders when we talk comparing like rebuilds and coaches and all that. So, but no, and the defense is Jesse Minter. He's a defensive coach, so he's gonna fit right into
And
the
a very
scheme.
good one at that.
Yeah, and they still got Kyle Hamilton. They still got Murphy. They got a lot of good, and I think they're going to booster up their defense. It's just the offense. Can the offense, as the Browns, they got their offensive coach. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Time will tell. But I think for the most part, you got one of the most athletic players in the game, one of the most um,
One of the
beastly
highest motors
players
in the
as
game.
yeah, and he's gonna wreak damage, and he's gonna be a difference maker, especially late in the game. You need a critical third down or fourth down stop. He's the guy that the Ravens are gonna turn to, and I still think they're the favorites to win the division right now, even though they got a new
100%.
coach. But obviously, we'll get to that later in the year. But it really made a revamp of this defense, and I like it. I just Mark, if he doesn't make it, he's gonna make a difference, and it's just to the dismay of the Browns, as Browns got to figure out a way to stop him along with T.J. Watt now.
Yep, I would definitely agree. And again, it just sucks for the Browns being that the division leader not only gets better, but gets one of the best players in the entire NFL. And now our entire division is just pretty much flooded with just pass rushers on end. And that doesn't help when you pretty much have a new head coach, a new offensive coach, and either a quarterback coming off of being out for two of the last three, basically two and a half of the last three seasons, or a sophomore quarterback that only had what I think 8 games under his belt or something like that last year. Like, and you're coming with
Yep.
basically a brand new full offensive line. The Browns and everybody in the division are in for it. And the AFC, I mean, the AFC is now wide open. I mean, you have, I know we're going to touch on another trade in the AFC, but now your top two teams in the AFC got much, much better this offseason in the first week or so.
Yeah, and we'll see how about that. And according to that, let's go to that trade. The Bills made a big trade, and I think it's going to help them a lot as they traded
100%.
for DJ Moore from Chicago, as Chicago sent a fifth round pick back to the Bills for a second rounder from the Bills. So I like this from the Bills. The Bills, if you watch football, they really never had that top receiver in a long time. They had a Curtis Samuel, they had Keon Coleman, who seems like he was kind of a troublemaker. He was a healthy scratch, coach's decision type of scratch. You had who else? You had Gabe Davis, who really didn't do much. Your only receivers were your tight ends, Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, were your only
Yeah.
receivers. Now you get bigger, you
And they
get a
did
better
have a
wide
few
receiver.
years of Stephon Diggs as well, and that was one of their best offensive stints.
Yeah, and without a receiver corpse, they somehow still made the playoffs. That's credit to coaching. That's credit to Josh Allen. That's
Who
credit
won an
to
MVP with that receiver core.
yeah, and they were literally seconds away from beating Denver in overtime in the playoffs to get to the
Yep.
AFC Championship game to face the Patriots. And who knows if they could have beat the Patriots, they could have
Yeah.
been going to Super Bowl with no receivers. So, and you look at it, and you're going to build around them now. Now depends where they are in the draft. They'll probably I don't know if they'll get a wide receiver in the first round unless someone's really sitting there that they like. You probably go third, second. Well, they don't have second round, so probably third, fourth. You probably or even free agency or maybe another trade. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I like this for the Bills. They get their guy to build around along. They still keep their offense intact. James Cook, Don Kincaid, obviously Allen. So I think the defense needs a little bit shaping up, but it worked out in the end. And it's gonna be interesting to see what Chicago does now, Mark, because they lost a receiver. Now they got Dunze and Luther Burden are like the only two receivers they got, along with Coastal Levin, so technically three. But you're gonna probably need somebody, and I'm sure there's no doubt they're gonna pick up someone in free agency, and maybe go after one of these ones in the draft as we get closer and closer as time will tell.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like this as far as the Bills are concerned. I think the market for receivers was set by the Bills first. As you've seen, obviously, if you've been following NFL trade news, everybody's pretty much going for like fifth rounders at this point, anyways. The Bills ended up getting a pick back and giving up only a second for a guy in DJ Moore, who at the end of the day, if you look at DJ Moore's career, he started off in Carolina. He was a number one in Carolina. When he got traded to Chicago, he completely changed that offense altogether. Whether it was Fields, now with Caleb Williams, he's produced no matter who has been on the field. He's been number one. And he changed that entire offense. With that offense, um, he brought it up to the top half of the league after it was a bottom feeder for years on years on years. Now he gets another opportunity to come and play with a literal MVP, and he's still got stuff left in the tank. You saw him this season with him trying to kind of feel out Caleb Williams for the last 2 years. He still produced, and I believe he was a 1,000-yard receiver both seasons with Williams, even though he vouched for Justin Fields to be the starter. Yeah. He had a lot of production with Fields as well. He had a lot of production in Carolina with terrible quarterback play. So everywhere DJ Moore goes, he produces and produces well. He's still got a lot left in the tank, and now you think about it, he's got an MVP with a fucking cannon of an arm who will take shots down the field, and that's DJ Moore's specialty. I believe they also still have Shakur on the roster over in Buffalo, so you kind of have intermediate routes taken care of if he's still there. I could be wrong. But DJ Moore getting basically a number one spot as Chicago kind of moves towards their younger guys, as Luther Burden showed flashes this year. Adunze before injury showed some flashes this year as well. So they're kind of moving towards a younger group and understanding that they have the opportunity to go get some receivers in a receiver-heavy draft as well this year. Maybe you see them move up draft boards or grab something in free agency, make another trade, etc. I think Chicago has the opportunity to get better, but the Bills, I mean, they solidify themselves and give themselves an opportunity to really shore up that defense in the draft and for the rest of free agency. And now they have a number one for Josh Allen to throw the ball to, who isn't really that much of a diva as far as number ones are concerned. Obviously, they had Stephon Diggs, who we all know does tend to cause some problems if he doesn't get the ball enough or things of that nature. You kind of have a bit of a quieter guy as a number one, who I think will work with Josh Allen well and has high production pretty much no matter what. So we'll see. Kind of obviously, it's scary for the rest of the AFC without Mahomes over in Kansas City. You have obviously what New England has, but the rest of the AFC should really be nervous because as far as Buffalo is concerned, they made it with a scrap heap. And now they've gotten significantly better, and Josh Allen's still in his prime. So, not to mention the fact Joe Brady was a coach in Chicago with DJ Moore, I believe, in his first season. So it'll be very interesting to see them reunite over in Buffalo with an MVP quarterback.
And you know what? What's the old phrase? If not now, when? Because now it seems like the Bills are getting help for Allen. They're getting help on their offense, which is much needed. They're trying to work on their defense, and like Mark said, Kansas City's who knows when Mahomes comes back this year. He's trying to push for training camp, but will he be the same? Who knows? We don't. There's even talk that we don't even know if Travis Kelce's going to be coming back. He wants to play, but it's not certain he's going to play for the Chiefs. But there's really no one to stop. Okay, the Patriots, the Texans, they usually get to a wall once they get to the playoffs. You saw that against New England. C.J. Stroud had like 4 turnovers in that game. So it's going to be interesting if they don't make the Super Bowl run this year. What happens? Because they just fired their coach. They hired their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, who has no coaching experience, has an offensive background. He coached LSU's 2019 national championship team, but this is, I think, a big year. I know the first year you're just getting your feet wet, but there's a lot of expectations coming for Joe Brady, and I think he needs to deliver for the Bills Mafia, because if the Bills Mafia don't get if they don't make it far in the playoffs, I think they'll make the playoffs. There'll either be a wild card or the division winner, depending on who it is between New England and the Bills. One of them will win the division, one of them will be playing in the wild card. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough do they make it? I don't know. I mean, who's stopping them, Mark? I mean, maybe the Ravens, Patriots. I mean, maybe I'm forgetting somebody in the AFC, but the AFC is wide open. And if they cannot make it to the AFC title game next year or farther, there's a big problem, and it might not be the coach. It might be the GM. And they kept their GM. As there were talks when they fired their coach that they wanted to keep their GM, or why didn't get rid of both and bring in their own and start a process. But now, this might fall on the GM, Mark, for being honest. We talk about how this might fall on Andrew Berry, coming to the Browns. But when it comes to the Bills, if they don't make it, I think you see the GM fired. I really do, or coming close because they this is their this I don't know. This is their championship window, and if they don't make it, there's gonna be lots and lots of seats getting warm in that front office come January 2027.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think at this point in time, the GM knows that he's in the hot seat as far as extended success, right? Like you already have a team that's a perennial playoff team. You've drafted Josh Allen, who has become what he's become, obviously, and probably will potentially go down as a Hall of Famer at some point in time if his career continues to go the way it has. But you haven't gotten out of the AFC, and you haven't even appeared in the Super Bowl yet. And
Yeah.
you continue to hit the same kind of walls, and eventually something needs to change. Your head coach is now changed. Now we'll see if that is enough to essentially change the rest of the outcomes here. It'll be very interesting to see because obviously you have um, he's built an incredible team and an incredible culture over there in Buffalo. But can you get over that hump to save your job and save yourself, especially after all the scrutiny with the Keon Coleman situation, everything that happened there? I mean, he seems to be a well liked guy, but how much does well liked, how far does well liked, I should say, go for you when you can't get over a certain hump with the talent that you have in the most important position?
Yeah, and make or break. That's how it is. Make or break. You don't win it this year. I don't know if they'll ever will win it or even get to the Super Bowl. Depending when
No.
teams start to reload, especially if Baltimore's still if Baltimore's there, New England doesn't it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. If KC gets back to form, they're going to be there. And speaking of KC, are this is another reason the Bills should probably they should make the playoffs or should make it far because they've traded their best cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Rams for a couple picks. So, Mark, this was very interesting when this trade was made. Is Casey rebuilding on the fly? We don't know what's going on with Kelsey. They traded their best corner. We don't know how much Pat Mahomes or how much was going to play next year. But the Rams trade, it's a very weird trade. And the Rams got better. Casey, we don't even know what the hell they're doing right now.
Yeah, it was a very interesting thing to happen based off of the fact that, like, obviously we know Mahomes is out for the year. We know that things kind of changed, but, like, he was their corner piece of that defense. He was kind of the main guy. He was their number one corner and arguably one of the probably top 5 or 10 best corners in the league at his height before or barring any injuries or anything like that. So it's very interesting to see, especially because they still retained Steve Spagnuolo. So I don't really understand the thought process there because their defense pretty much this entire time with Mahomes hasn't exactly been the best. Like we're not sitting there saying like, oh my God, they have a top 5 defense. They really don't. Like it's very middle of the pack. Now, obviously Spagnuolo comes to play when playoffs come, but I I don't know that I really understand. And then as far as like the Rams go, I mean they kind of get a steal out of this deal while
Yeah.
also kind of extending their window for potentially another run at the Super Bowl with Matt Stafford still being in town and playing at the level he is after his MVP season. The Rams, kind of similar to the Bills, are in another win now mode, and you see them kind of back to their mantra of "fuck those picks," and they go get a number one corner yet again. So another front office willing to go out and win, and here we are again. We'll see what Kansas City does. It seems as though they're in a rebuild, and they're kind of stacking picks. But what are they stacking picks for? Are they going to go offense, or are they going to try to make this defense shored up and younger? I don't really know, and I think only time will tell as they've really been compiling a lot of these picks and a lot of cap space. So it'll be interesting to see what they do the rest of this offseason moving forward because it's not really it's not really super noticeable like what way they want to go with things. Like you still have like Chris Jones who is towards the tail end of his career on contract. So like if you're going to go into full rebuild, why not trade him as well? Do we
Right.
see him get traded So it like you just traded one of your youngest pieces and your best piece on defense for not a whole lot of compensation. Like, I mean, they got a decent amount, but it's not exactly the craziest thing in the world based off of trades that we've seen even as far as this morning at the time of this recording. So it's interesting to see where Kansas City is going and where they will go in the coming days, weeks, and months leading up to the draft ahead because it's not really very clear right now.
No, and the Rams last night just gave him a record 4-year, $124 million extension that includes $100 million guaranteed, makes him the highest paid cornerback in NFL history. So this is what they think of him and how highly they think of him. So it's a great move by the Rams, and their defense gets better. But I think Spagnuolo, I think his time's coming to an end. I think people are starting to figure him out, figure out his scheme. And even before Mahomes got hurt last year, you could tell he was starting to get figured out a little bit. He was starting to figure out, how they ran things. And remember, there was a big talk when Chris Jones gave up on that play in Jacksonville in overtime when he let Trevor Lawrence just run right in. Like, that was a big talk. That kind of, I think, I wouldn't say defined the season, but, like, that's how the season was going. Like, Chris Jones, the year before, he made the game-winning play to send the Kansas City Chiefs to to the playoffs or something. So,
Yep.
and now then he's watching Jacksonville celebrate after an OT win because he didn't hustle. So I think that's just how the season went and how the season was going to a point where he was just like, you know what, it's time to just pack it up and we'll just start over, in 26. But it's, Andy Reid though, man, you can't count him out.
That's
He'll
also
somehow,
true.
especially when he has a lot of time to plan. Now, when Mahomes went down, I think he kind of knew too, like, all right, let's just get through the season and kind of restart,
Yep.
in January. So you cannot count him out. They brought back their original OC, Eric Bieniemy. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on, especially if Mahomes can get healthy before the season or sometime during the season. I would not be surprised if somehow they go after Daniel Jones. I'm being honest. If they
I
go
can
after
see it.
Daniel Jones. But does he want to be backup though? That's the thing. Especially if Mahomes is ready. I think that's gonna be a key too. Where they're gonna need a quarterback because was it Gardner Minshew? I don't think they roll with him week one if Mahomes isn't ready. I think maybe do they go after Geno Smith maybe?
Good.
No, just to. I mean, there's a
Be
lot
a
of
service,
Tua.
yeah.
Do they go through Tua though? I mean, Tua. It's a matter of can he play in cold weather though. When we get
Yep.
to November, December, January, when it's time for crunch time. So there's a lot of options now. And what does Casey do with Kelsey? Kelsey said that he wants to come back. It may not be with Kansas City though, which now they're going to need a tight end. Now they have a couple good backup tight ends, but not Travis Kelsey. Not a Kelsey to be the blanket for Mahomes or whoever quarterback's back there. So
Yep.
it's going to be a wild offseason, folks. Buckle up. We still got the draft coming up. This is just the start of everything. But, Mark, with Kansas City, there's a lot of questions. I'd be very, very shocked if they made the playoffs this coming season.
Yeah, I would agree. And as far as the offseason goes, I mean, tampering begins at the day of this recording at noon Eastern. So about an hour from when we're talking right here. So Lord only knows what kind of news is about to come ahead of time. Obviously, there's a bunch of stuff already flying all over the place, and that's just the trades. Now you're going to have free agents kind of starting to fit the bill and see where they want to go and start to command some money. So, I mean, as far as this goes, like you, I can only imagine what we're going to be talking about in weeks to come, and it'll be very interesting to see not only where Kansas City ends because I don't see them making the playoffs either, but where a lot of these teams end, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to get the writing on the wall on where these teams want to go one way or the other if they want to try to win now and get a bunch of free agents,
Yeah.
or if they are going to go full rebuild and utilize their draft picks to go younger. You're going to start to see literally within an hour on some of these teams. Like there's reports of the Browns going after veteran O-line. So do they start to try to win now? There's reports of other teams like backing off of free agents already and trying to just get younger guys on their second deal. So, I mean, for those of you that follow really only the NFL and follow the NFL extremely hardcore, today is your day to really understand where maybe the teams that you root for, the fantasy players that you root for, or your hometown team, where they're going to go and kind of starting to see their direction moving forward on what you might be seeing for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And when one domino falls, there's gonna be one big domino fall, then things are gonna start going. Like we mentioned, where's Tua going? Where's AJ Brown gonna get traded? Because I think that's gonna set the market as well for these other receivers. Depends where he goes. As the list came out just now, he wants to either go to the Bills, Chargers, Chiefs, or Pats. So it's gonna be telling where he wants where the if the Eagles can work out a trade, but can you imagine if he goes to the Bills? Then it would be no excuses for the Bills not to make the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah,
But
no kidding.
no
Also, Mike
excuses.
Evans is out there.
Yeah, Mike Evans. Where does he go? It sounds like he's coming back, but it's not going to be for the Bucks. Who kind of takes the swing at him? Who's going to offer him the money he wants to come play? It's be very interesting, especially a playoff team. There's no way he's not going to play. There's no way he's going to play for a team that's probably in rebuild mode. I would say.
More than
I
likely,
don't.
but as far as his agent has said up until this point, he's open to any and all teams as long as the money is right. So he could be swayed by money as well.
Yeah, so I think it's gonna be very telling. I think with the quarterbacks, we're gonna talk about next week and week. We'll
Malik
talk about
Willis.
Malik Willis. We'll talk about the Tua situation.
Yep.
Browns restructured Watson. So there's a lot of Daniel Jones. Where is he gonna go? So there's a lot of positions that are wide open in
Well,
this.
I believe Daniel Jones was franchise tagged by the Colts on Tag Tuesday, so it looks like he's not going anywhere as they were between him and Alec Pierce, and Daniel Jones did get that franchise tag.
Yeah, that's right. My bad. I forgot all about that. And then you got Alec Pierce, where's he gonna go? So the wide receiver market is open, and you still got the draft of Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, a couple Omar Casper from Indiana. There is a lot to be decided, Mark, and this is just the
Buckle up,
start.
everyone.
Buckle up from a wild offseason that I'm sure is ahead. And before you know it, we're gonna be at the draft, we're gonna be at OTAs, we're gonna be at training camp, and then football will be back for good for another
100%.
full-on season between college and NFL, and we'll be ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Football clearly is showing that it'll never die, even in the bane of the off season, and while other sports are happening, as I'm sure we're about to close out with it. I mean, football just it never goes away, and as these periods kind of start, they only heighten itself more and more, and you only get to see more and more of some crazy things happen because the league is only getting more talented each and every week. So it's very, very interesting to see. That's to say the least. And when you think football is over, it comes and takes over the headlines no matter what else is going on.
Yes, and there's a lot we don't want to overbarge you or with news, so we're not. That's why we're not digging into everything because we could go on and we have a 3-hour show talking about everything that's happened in the past, literally the
Literally.
last week. So we're trying to spread it out so that we can have our full attention on certain stories, and I'm sure certain stories that come about are going to change what we talk
Oh,
about. So especially if
100%.
there's a big one. So we promise we're going to get to as much as we can throughout the off season until we get the training camp. And obviously we'll switch our attention to what the teams look like, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll have a draft preview and training camp preview and all that coming up. So just stick with us. We're gonna get through. It's kind of I won't say downtime, but we're working through all these stories. Trying to get in.
It's
March
news
Madness.
time is really what it is.
What's that?
I said really what it is just news time.
Yeah, news time. So we're trying to pick the stories that you guys want to hear and what we want to talk about. So obviously the bigger stories like the Lou Holtz we want to get out there because that's obviously a national thing. But we're rocking and rolling. We're going to do it all again next week with the March Madness preview. We're going to go through every game. We're going to pick the bracket. We're excited for it to talk about all the games. And we'll carry some storylines, especially if Miami doesn't make it in the tournament. Oh, we forgot WBC. Let's talk a little bit WBC before we get out of here. That's been starting this week as United States is 2-0. Puerto Rico's
Yes,
2-0.
sir.
Japan is just a wagon. They're 3-0. The defending champ, Mark. And unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to some teams already. Australia's eliminated. Great Britain's eliminated. A couple other teams. But the World Baseball Classic has been a fun one so far. And United States is probably one win away from reaching the quarterfinals. But this is what happens when you're a juggernaut. You just run through these teams and you're right there at the end.
Yeah, I agree. United States being 2-0 is expected. Anything less than that would be relatively disappointing and probably cause a lot more of an uproar, especially based off of the roster that we have. Especially just hitting alone let alone some of the pitching that we still have in the building, even after Screwball um, is gone and out of the building.
Yep.
But obviously, we're expecting another win. We're expecting the World Baseball Classic championship. But I mean, yeah, there's a couple other teams that are 2-0, and only time will tell how the U.S. goes. It looks like Aaron Judge is still rocking and rolling as far as I've seen so far. I believe. I know he has at least one home run, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
first at bat of the tournament too,
yeah,
back on Thursday
so I
or
mean,
Friday.
the team captain started off the World Baseball Classic hot, and we stayed hot throughout. And I really don't expect a loss, Kyle. To be honest, as far as the USA goes and the standards go, they built their roster to win and win mightily and easily. Obviously, baseball can be a bit of a up and down sport when it comes to if your stuff is on or not from a pitching standpoint. But I'm expecting a clean sweep by the USA as this classic goes forward.
Yeah, they're 2-0 along with Italy and Mexico who are in their
Yep.
pool as well. So then they'll be able to, with one more win, US should make it as top two from each pool make it to the quarterfinals. So if they win tonight or tomorrow, they're in and they will be good. As Canada got upset yesterday to Panama, so Canada's fighting for their lives. Panama's fighting for their lives too. But
El
you know,
Canadian.
Puerto Rico is just, they won. They play Cuba, I believe. Let's see, tomorrow or today. They play Cuba today, so that's pretty much a winner for the group. As if one of those winners or one of those teams will clinch the group today, and the loser has to play. We'll play tomorrow regardless, but we'll have to win to get in. So there's a lot to be decided. And when it comes to national tournament, it is international tournament. It is amazing, and we still got the World Cup to go for soccer in July.
Yeah,
We can't forget about that.
it's
It's going to be
insane.
that's going to cure some midsummer blues. But no, and so many teams. Dominican Republic is still a wheelhouse, and Japan shouldn't even have Venezuela, but Japan shouldn't even have played. They should just got to bye to the quarterfinal round,
At
or
this point,
probably even on the finals because they're 3-0. Nobody's stopping them. I don't. Czechia ain't stopping. They play Czechia tomorrow morning. They're gonna Czechia. I feel sorry for Czechia, but and then you just got yeah. I mean Japan, it's just literally like nobody's. You got Shohei Otani. You got some other great Japanese folks that I think Suzuki from the Cubs.
yeah,
I'm not sure if Yamamoto's on there, but
I
it's
believe he
just
is.
it's just a great tournament, and I'm excited to watch Cuba, Puerto Rico, Mexico, United States, along with college basketball. But yeah, so this is really Israel's fighting, hanging on. They're still in it, but Australia did lost. Korea is hanging around. There's just and I said this. There's some teams that just are going to win, Mark, but then
Yep.
there's some teams that are just there to fill spots, like Czechia. They went 0-3. Now they're not automatically into the next World Baseball Classic. I believe it's in like 3 years. They have to requalify, so they have to go through the whole cycle again just to make it. So they might not even be in it next year's with. So it's just very interesting. I would love to see maybe change it to like an Olympic format where it's just in one country. But then I understand because with spring training and baseball, it's got just keep it in the United States. But bring baseball back to the Olympics. I think it'd be cool to have them in the Olympics as well. In a couple of years, we'll see after the lockout, the pending lockout, we keep alluding to because I think that's going to throw a wrench into a lot of things. But I like this tournament. I love this tournament. It's obviously it comes around. You got to enjoy it because it comes around once a year or once every couple of years, and before you know it, it's gonna be done with, and we're back to college basketball for good. But it's been a fun tournament, Mark, and we're just getting started with one more week to go in this one, week and a half, I should say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got again. I'm just gonna say it kind of as we're ending here. You got so much going on in the world of sports. Um, Again, with free agency, you got the World Baseball Classic. Even Kyle mentioned just a minute ago, you got the World Cup on the way. Um, you got, I mean, you got the NBA down in their final stretch. Uh,
Hockey, NHL
Hockey,
too.
you got March Madness. I mean, it's an insane time because of the way international things are working out. Where like this year is just chock full of events all over the place. We just finished the Olympics. We finished football season just a little bit ago, even though it feels like forever ago. It really was only a month ago. Um, you've still got UFC to fill in kind of random weekend gaps as well. Like
Yep.
this 2026 year is chock full of events after events after events that are huge and nationwide, while also having big America events, your American sports, your NHL, your NBA finals, things like that. So, I mean, it's just a wild ride altogether, all throughout this year, and we are extremely lucky to not only experience it but talk about it each and every week.
Yeah, so let's enjoy it, folks, because next year it's going to be a little quieter with not a lot going on. So enjoy it this year and soak it all up, especially if there's no baseball next year. You're going to be wishing you had this year back. So on that note, don't forget, we'll do our March Madness preview entire show next week. We'll pick all the games, storylines, and don't forget March 25th, live, 7 p.m. right here on YouTube. Live show, the chat with y'all. We cannot wait. We are out of here. Can't wait. I am Kyle. He's Mark. We'll see you next week on the final whistle. Enjoy the madness of March. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.